You'd think a grown woman could plan her own vacation. In my family, that's just a fantasy. Even the sound of the Denver rain pattering against my apartment window couldn't drown out the relentless buzz from my phone. The family group chat, Thompson's Forever, was back at it, as if time had stood still since last summer. I'd been halfway through folding a pile of laundry, mismatched socks and all, when Emily's message lit up the screen. Thinking of a beach house for July. Mason and Sophie love the sand, and it'll be perfect for the kids' schedule. Thoughts? Seconds later, a parade of gifts. Dancing beach balls, sun hats, a little cartoon family crammed in a minivan. I dropped the socks and stared at my half-packed suitcase, a cheap thing I'd bought at Target 2 years ago, still bearing a faded luggage tag from last summer's adventure. That trip replayed in my mind with uncomfortable clarity. The clammy air mattress in the living room, the laughter coming from the master bedroom where Emily's kids camped out with their iPads, me tiptoeing to the fridge at night so I wouldn't wake anyone. I remembered promising myself, half-heartedly, that next year would be different. Now it was next year, and I was no closer to escaping the gravitational pull of family expectations. Linda, Mom, jumped in right on cue, her text chirping across the screen. Anna, honey, can you help your sister figure out logistics? You have the most flexibility. It would mean so much to the kids. I could picture her, glasses halfway down her nose, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of chamomile tea, orchestrating a family gathering as if the happiness of the entire clan rested on her calendar app. Before I could respond, Emily sent a picture of Mason, toothy grin and sticky fingers, holding a bucket and plastic shovel, captioned, "He keeps asking if Aunt Anna will come." I felt a lump gather in my throat, somewhere between affection and exhaustion. I wondered how many years I'd spent folding my own wishes into corners, like old shirts I never quite got around to donating. I swiped away the texts and opened my notes app, the cursor blinking beside Anna's dream getaway. My plan, at least, my hope, was a solo hiking trip in the Rockies. I pictured quiet mornings, pine trees dripping dew, nobody asking me to find missing socks or fix snacks, just the hush of mountain air and the steady beat of my own footsteps. It sounded almost selfish in its simplicity. But when I returned to the group chat, my resolve wilted. There was a new meme. Kermit the Frog sipping tea, overlaid with "must be nice to have no responsibilities." More beach gifts. Emily again. Aunt Anna, we need you. Then Linda, sending a flurry of heart emojis, and, finally, you know how important it is for us all to be together. Life is short, sweetheart. If I'd been braver, maybe I would have spoken up last year. Instead, I'd let myself get swept into the tide. Now, I picked up my phone, erased the reply I'd started, "Sounds great. Let me know what you need," and typed, slowly, I was hoping to do a solo hiking trip this year, maybe Rocky Mountain National Park. Just to get some peace and recharge. My thumb hovered over send. I deleted it. Frustrated, I set the phone aside and grabbed the DoorDash bag off the counter, cold fries, half a club sandwich, the kind of comfort meal that tasted better when shared. My gaze drifted to the refrigerator, plastered with old family vacation photos. There I was, the only one looking straight at the camera, everyone else mid-laugh, eyes on Emily's kids. A ping. Another ping. I forced myself to look. Emily had sent, "Well, I guess we can try to make it work, but you know how hard it is with the kids' naps and meal times. It's just easier if everyone's on the same page." More memes. Linda again, this time directly. "Remember, honey, you have the freedom your sister doesn't." The guilt came quick and thick, a river that was hard to cross. I texted Sarah, my best friend, who always seemed to know when I was spiraling. Remind me why I'm the bad guy for wanting one weekend to myself? She replied almost instantly, because you're not. Take your trip. Let the world turn without you for a bit. Easier said than done, I thought, but her words lit a small fire. Maybe it was time, after years of holding the peace, to hold my own ground. I scrolled through my half-written packing list. Hiking boots, sunblock, trail mix, a new paperback. A world away from sand toys and matching t-shirts. The rain grew heavier, drumming steady as my doubts. I stared at the phone at the blinking dots of the group chat as Emily typed another message. Before I could lose my nerve, I reopened the chat, typed carefully, I want to do my own thing this year. Maybe a hiking trip. I hope that's okay. I hit send. It felt like tossing a pebble into a lake and waiting for the ripples to reach shore. Almost instantly, Emily responded, of course you'd bail when things get hard. A few moments later, Linda chimed in, softer, but cutting in its own way. Please don't let us down, sweetie. I dropped the phone onto the bed and sat down, listening to the rain. The room felt smaller, somehow. I thought about all the times I'd smoothed over tension, all the times I'd folded myself to fit the needs of others. Maybe the only way to find peace was to claim a little space for myself, even if it meant weathering a storm first. There's a saying my grandma used to repeat, in this life, no one else can walk your road for you. I suppose this year, I'd find out where my road would lead. There's heavy, and then there's family guilt heavy. This morning, the rain had cleared, but the gray lingered, settled in my bones as if the sky had found a way to come inside. My kitchen table was a battlefield, laptop open to half a dozen travel tabs, my phone blinking with new messages, and a sweating cup of cold brew that I'd forgotten to finish. The Thompson family group chat was the main event, and I was the reluctant star. Emily was on a roll. Her messages pinged in so fast, I could barely keep up. You have no idea how hard it is to coordinate naps, meals, and bedtimes for 2 kids. I just need one thing to go smoothly, Anna. It's not like you have to check anyone else's schedule. There was a little knife in that last line, and she knew it. I tried to shake it off, but guilt sticks, sticky as peanut butter on the roof of your mouth. Then came the list. Emily's reasons why a family vacation should revolve around the kids, the price of beachfront rentals, child-friendly activities, the fact that Mason gets carsick, Sophie won't eat anything but mac and cheese. On and on. Each item felt like a brick being laid in a wall between us. I scrolled up and saw yesterday's photo of Mason, shovel in hand, grinning. For a second, my resolve crumbled. Didn't I want him to have memories with his aunt? Wasn't that what family was for? Linda swooped in next. Her brand of guilt was softer, but it wrapped around you just the same. Remember when you were little, Anna? We all pitched in. I'd give anything to have those days back. She followed with a string of photos from years past, all of us in matching t-shirts at the lake, Emily holding Sophie as a baby, Dad grilling burgers with a sunburned nose. The nostalgia was thick and sweet, like syrup left too long on the stove. I couldn't deny the warmth in those memories. But I also couldn't ignore the way my own face was always turned to the camera, smiling, but never quite as brightly as everyone else. I looked at the blinking cursor on my screen, my booking for the hiking trip, half finished and untouched. My chest tightened. Dad's voice echoed, steady as always. Family sticks together, Anna. We get through the hard parts as a team. I wanted to believe that. But sometimes, sticking together just felt like being stuck. The cold brew had gone watery, but I drank it anyway, hoping the bitterness would wake me up. It didn't. I glanced at the pile of hiking gear in the corner, new boots, still in their box, a water bottle I'd splurged on, hoping for adventure. It all looked a little silly now, like I was playing pretend. The truth was, I didn't know if I was brave or just stubborn. My phone vibrated again, a FaceTime call from Sarah. I answered, grateful for a friendly face. She was already at Starbucks, earbuds in, hair pulled back, the hum of the cafe behind her. You look like someone trying to solve a puzzle with no edges, she teased. I tried to smile. I don't know what to do, I admitted, voice low. Emily says it's impossible to plan anything around me. Mom keeps sending me baby pictures. I feel like the bad guy. Sarah sipped her coffee and shrugged. Maybe it's time you be the bad guy, Anna. At least once. You can love your family and still say no. That's not a crime. Easy for you to say. Your family expects you to do your own thing. She shook her head. My family just yells louder. Listen, you need to do this for yourself. You've earned it. Besides, you're more likely to get eaten by a bear than actually disappoint your mom. And you're from Colorado, not Alaska. I laughed, feeling the weight lift a little. I remembered a saying, even the tightest knot comes undone if you tug the right way. Maybe this was my tug. As Sarah signed off, I looked again at my open booking tab. I thought about all the times I'd hit pause on my own dreams, waiting for someone else to give me permission. I started filling out the form. Dates, destination, credit card info. My hand shook as I hovered over Book Now. Before I could lose my nerve, I pressed the button. My heart hammered as I wrote a message to the family chat. I've decided to book a hiking trip this summer. I hope you understand. I just need a little space for myself this year. Almost instantly, Emily exploded. You don't care about this family at all, do you? I can't believe you'd pick yourself over everyone else. It must be nice to be so selfish. The words stung, bright red and loud on the screen. Linda was slower, her message a gentle plea. Just remember, honey, families don't last forever. I hope you'll reconsider. The notifications flew in passive-aggressive gifs, sad face emojis, a string of messages from Emily and Linda, then nothing. Just like that, the group chat went silent. I stared at the phone, feeling both lighter and lonelier than I had in years. My thumb hovered over Leave Group. For a long moment, I thought about it. I set the phone face down on the table instead. My coffee was cold, but I drank it anyway, savoring the quiet, letting myself feel everything. The world didn't end, not right away. But I could tell the storm was just beginning. No is the hardest word I've ever learned to say to my family. Some days it still feels foreign in my mouth, as if I'm borrowing it from someone braver. Yet there I was, a 30-year-old woman, pacing my Denver apartment in the neon glow of my phone, replaying childhood echoes in my head, Emily's old refrain, "We're sisters, I'll always need you." What she needed now, it seemed, was for me to drop my life for hers. The fallout from my decision was immediate. Emily's messages, once lively and full of emojis, had turned curt and cold. "I hope your mountains are worth it," she wrote, followed by, "Don't bother checking in with the kids. They're disappointed." Sometimes, there was just a thumbs down emoji or a silent notification that she'd left my latest message on scene. The tone was unmistakable, hurt, and trying to hurt me in return. Linda sent a string of sad face emojis, alternating with, "I wish things didn't have to be this way," and "It's not too late to change your mind." Charles was the quietest of all. His texts became weather updates, storm coming this weekend. Don't forget your rain jacket and nothing else. I found myself wishing he'd say something, anything, to break the growing silence. I tried to focus on my hiking plans. I opened the REI bag in my closet, running my finger over the sturdy new boots I'd splurged on, feeling the rough seams, the promise of untraveled trails. My packing list was open on the counter: water bottle, granola bars, extra socks, Sarah's hand-drawn cartoon of a smiling mountain goat for luck. But every time I tried to picture crisp air and quiet pine, my mind slid back to the unresolved tension, a constant background hum. That morning, Sarah showed up at my door, a pink box of donuts in one hand, iced coffee in the other. "No one can mope with a fresh maple bar," she declared, pushing past me into the kitchen. I let her set up shop at my table, grateful for the distraction. She nudged a glazed donut into my hand and grinned. "You know, sometimes selfish is just code for finally paying attention to yourself. Want to do something ridiculous today?" We ended up thrift shopping, searching for the ugliest vacation shirts we could find. Sarah tried on a sun hat the size of a satellite dish and struck a pose in front of the cracked mirror. For the first time in days, I laughed out loud, real laughter, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper than politeness. Afterward, at the sunny cafe on the corner, we claimed a wobbly table outside. I snapped a picture of my hiking boots peeking out from under the table, captioned it "Adventure Awaits," and posted it online. Friends chimed in with heart emojis and "You go, girl." Small, silly affirmations that felt bigger than they should have. Then I saw Emily's response, a lone thumbs down. It was such a small gesture, but it stung, the kind of pain that lingers after a slap, more surprise than injury. I remembered summers when we were little, sticky popsicles in the backyard, Emily daring me to jump through sprinklers, Dad barbecuing hot dogs with country music on the radio. Those memories felt distant now, washed out like old photographs, replaced by this cold war of texts and expectations. Back at home, the apartment was too quiet. I set the REI bag by the door, sat on the edge of my bed, and scrolled through the family group chat. There was a long silence, broken only by a series of notifications from Emily, 3 in a row, none addressed to me directly, all about logistics for the beach house, reminders for sunscreen and allergy meds. It was like she was planning her vacation in a parallel universe, one I'd been quietly erased from. The phone buzzed with another group chat notification, but this time I didn't read it. My thumb hovered over the screen, hesitated, then finally pressed leave group. It was a strangely anticlimactic moment. No fireworks, just a soft "Are you sure?" prompt, and then the sudden hush of digital silence. I stared at the blank screen, a lump forming in my throat. I wondered if this was what freedom felt like, a kind of floating, untethered, almost weightless, but lonely too. I traced the outline of my hiking boots again, thinking of all the roads I might walk, all the peace I hoped to find. Just then, the phone lit up again, Linda's number. I hesitated, but let it ring. The voicemail notification glowed in the dark. I pressed play, her voice shaky, full of longing. "Please call me. We need to talk." As the message ended, I sat in the blue-gray quiet, donut box open, Sarah's laughter still ringing faintly in my ears. The road ahead felt uncertain, but for the first time, I was ready to walk it, one careful step at a time. Leaving for the mountains should have felt freeing, but the ache in my chest came along for the ride. I zipped up my duffel in the half-light, Denver still asleep outside my window, the city lights glowing faint behind rain-smeared glass. As I turned the lock, Linda's voice rang in my memory. "Please call me. We need to talk." I hesitated in the doorway, gripping the bandana Sarah had given me, "Climb Your Own Mountain," stitched in teal thread, hoping I'd need it to mop sweat, not tears. My Uber arrived early, headlights cutting through the mist. The driver, a middle-aged man in a Rockies cap, barely glanced up as I slid into the back seat. I stared out at the empty streets, nerves fluttering as Sarah's text pinged, a meme of a mountain sunrise and the words, "Remember, bears are just big introverts." I couldn't help but laugh, even as I felt the hollow space where my family's silence should have been. At the airport, everything felt sharper. The taste of a too-strong bagel, the whir of roller bags on tile, a family in matching shirts huddling at the gate. I kept to myself, double-checking my ticket, the bandana now knotted around my wrist for courage. Another text from Sarah. Send selfies or I'll assume you've run off to join a goat cult. I sent a picture of my coffee and a peace sign, hiding the fact that my hands trembled. The shuttle to the trailhead was half full, mostly singles and pairs, each carrying that look of private anticipation. I settled into my seat, opening my phone to the family chat, a string of messages about sunscreen and snacks, none for me. I thought about calling Linda, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I scrolled back through old photos, Emily with sunburned cheeks, Mason's first steps at the lake, Sophie with an ice cream mustache. The ache flared, sharp as ever, but I made myself look. Sometimes old wounds need sunlight. Stepping off the shuttle, the air was crisp and pine-sweet, mountains looming pale in the dawn. At the lodge, I found a spare bunk in a dorm room, painted the color of oatmeal, dropped my bag, and made my way to the communal breakfast. The scent of burnt coffee and cinnamon rolls drifted through the chatter. I sat alone with my plate, acutely aware of my solitude. Across from me, an older woman with a silver braid smiled. "First time?" she asked, her voice warm, eyes crinkling at the corners. I nodded, unsure how much to share. "First time traveling alone," I managed. She poured syrup over her pancakes. "It's a leap, isn't it? My granddaughter always says, 'Grandma, aren't you scared?' I tell her, 'Sometimes you have to wander to come home.'" A young couple joined us, swapping stories about hiking the Cascades. Soon the table was alive with laughter, gear tips, and travel fails. I relaxed, letting the ordinary kindness of strangers wrap around me. For a while, the ache receded. We set off together, the trail rising into the brightening day. I fell into step, boots biting the earth, the rhythm of breathing and birdsong settling my nerves. Every now and then, I caught myself glancing at my phone, half expecting a message that never came. I checked anyway, just a work email and a thumbs up from Sarah. The climb was steady, switchbacks winding through aspen and spruce. My boots grew muddy, the weight of my pack both burden and anchor. With every step, I felt guilt and wonder, guilt for not being what my family wanted, wonder at the freedom of being just myself. The mountains were honest, indifferent. Here, nobody cared if I was selfish or selfless. I stopped at a lookout, breathless, and let the silence fill me. At camp that night, the fire crackled, sending sparks into the dark. The older woman, Helen, she'd introduced herself over lunch, passed me a marshmallow for Eskimo rays. "The first night's the hardest," she said, toasting hers to golden perfection. "But the next morning always comes." We shared stories, laughter threading the spaces between our words. Someone played guitar, off-key but cheerful. As the fire died down, Helen said, "Don't worry if you get lost. Sometimes that's the only way to find your way back." I wrote it down in my journal, the page flickering in the firelight. For once, I wrote for myself, not for anyone else. Much later, I found a quiet spot under the stars and looked up, my fingers tracing the stitches in Sarah's bandana. I thought about all the times I'd been the peacemaker, The one who said yes so others could say no. Out here, surrounded by strangers, I realized how heavy those patterns were and how much lighter I could be, even with the ache still echoing inside. Morning came with the promise of rain. Clouds gathered as we tackled the hardest climb, a steep, rocky ridge with switchbacks that left my legs burning. Halfway up, I faltered, heart racing, doubt whispering that I should turn back. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and remembered Helen's words. "You don't have to do it fast," she'd said, "just keep moving." So I did. Hands muddy, boots slipping, I reached the top, breath ragged, face wet with sweat, and, I admitted to myself, a few tears. But as I stood on the ridge, the world stretching wide and green below, pride filled the empty spaces the ache had left. For a moment, I let myself believe I belonged out here, too. As thunder rumbled in the distance, I pulled out my phone, rain spattering the screen. A missed call from Linda. A new voicemail. "We really do need you, Anna." Her voice was softer than before, threaded with hope and worry. I tucked the phone away and pulled my bandana tight, feeling the mountain wind on my face. For the first time in a long time, I didn't rush to answer. The storm might be coming, but tonight, under this vast sky, I was exactly where I needed to be. They say every storm passes, but some leave you changed. The mountain lodge was small and sturdy, a patch of golden lamplight in a world that had turned gray and wet. Rain hammered the roof so hard it drowned out even my thoughts. I curled up in the corner of the common room, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, the scent of wood smoke and damp earth clinging to my skin. My hiking boots, still caked in yesterday's mud, stood sentry by the door. The ache in my chest had softened, but not disappeared. There are some aches you just carry, like old songs you know by heart. Outside, thunder rolled. I pulled out my phone, the screen lighting up my face in the gloom. One missed call. Linda. 2 voicemails. I hesitated, bracing myself, then pressed play. Her voice filled the quiet, softer than before. "Anna, I miss you. Your sister's upset, but she's hurting too. I know you want space, but families aren't meant to drift apart. Please call me when you can. I only want you to be happy, even if it's not with us right now." The line clicked off. My throat tightened. I pressed my forehead to the cold window, the rain outside, echoing the tears I wouldn't let fall. Charles's words returned to me, gentle as always. "There's a rainbow after every storm." I wondered if he'd ever spent so long waiting for one to appear. Helen, the grandmother hiker, bustled in with a mug of coffee and sat beside me. "Storm's not letting up," she said, voice cheerful despite the thunder. "Reminds me of summers in Maine, whole days where you couldn't see the sea, just clouds and the smell of wet rocks." I nodded, grateful for the company. She reached out and patted my hand. "Sometimes storms make us stop and listen. That's when we hear things we usually tune out." Later, we gathered with a few other hikers in the snug lamplight. They shared stories over cracked mugs, arguments with siblings, cross-country moves, the ache of wanting to belong somewhere, but also wanting to belong to yourself. The hiking couple from Seattle, Mark and Angela, told how they'd quit safe jobs and spent a year on the road, their families convinced they'd lost their minds. "Turns out, the sky doesn't fall when you do your own thing," Angela said, smiling. I found myself opening up. "It's strange," I said, twirling Sarah's bandana between my fingers. "I thought leaving would be the hardest part. But it's sitting here, not fixing everything, not going home. That's what really hurts." The others nodded. Helen squeezed my arm. "That's the price of change, honey. Sometimes it costs you comfort, but you gain a kind of peace. My phone buzzed, a meme from Sarah, a cartoon goat with sunglasses and a trophy, captioned, "You're the goat at setting boundaries." I let out a laugh, so sudden and genuine it startled me. Across the room, Angela flashed me a thumbs up. By morning, the rain had slowed to a mist. The power was still out in half the building, so we pooled snacks and ate by the window, watching the world brighten, if only by degrees. When the road cleared, we hiked down to a diner in town, the kind of place where the floor squeaked and the coffee never ran out. The pancakes were thick, swimming in butter, syrup pooling at the edges. The server called everyone Han, and the local weather radio played quietly by the counter. It was comfort food in the purest sense, and with each bite, the tightness in my chest eased. Over breakfast, Mark asked, "Do you think you'll go back home or keep wandering?" I thought about it, about what home really meant. Maybe I realized it wasn't a place so much as a feeling. I didn't need to explain that to strangers. They understood in the way only fellow wanderers do. I stepped outside, phone in hand, the sky streaked with uncertain light. For a moment, I just breathed, cool air filling my lungs. Then I dialed Linda's number. My fingers trembled, but I didn't hang up. She answered quickly, voice raw with hope and worry. "Anna?" I swallowed. "Mom, I love you, but I can't always be the one who bends. I need to make space for myself, too." There was a long pause on the other end. For a second, I wondered if I'd said too much. Then Linda spoke, quieter but stronger than I'd expected. "I just want you to be happy, Anna. Even if it's hard for me. I'll try to understand." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I managed to smile. "Thank you, Mom." We said goodbye, the silence between us softer now, something we could both breathe in. I leaned against the diner's painted rail, hands wrapped around my coffee mug, the world sparkling with the last of the rain. That's when a new message pinged in from Emily. "Mom says you stood up for yourself. Maybe you're braver than I thought." The sun broke through the clouds, and as I looked up, a double rainbow arched over the highway, its colors reflected in my phone's glass. I stood for a long moment, bandana in one hand, letting the light and rain mix, letting myself feel both lighter and heavier all at once. Then another message, a new group chat invite, Family Summer 2024. For the first time, I didn't flinch. Instead, I saved the rainbow's photo and pressed join. Some storms break things apart. Others, I suppose, show you what's strong enough to remain. Home isn't always a place. Sometimes, it's the line you finally draw for yourself. The Denver summer was in full bloom when I let myself back into my apartment, sunlight angling through the blinds, catching on dust motes and the faded vacation photos still taped to my fridge. My hiking boots, scuffed and muddy from the mountain rain, sat where I'd left them by the door, a small, sturdy reminder that this time, I'd really walked my own path. Sarah called the minute she knew I was back in town. "Coffee?" she asked, not bothering to wait for an answer. We met at our favorite corner cafe, the kind with chalkboard menus and a bowl of oranges on the counter, jazz humming faintly in the background. Sarah was already at a window table, her smile warm and proud. I slid into the seat across from her, feeling lighter, almost new. "How's it feel to be the family rebel?" she teased, sliding a cup of iced coffee my way. I laughed, the sound genuine, not a cover for nerves. Surprisingly good. Like I finally took my name off someone else's attendance sheet. We swapped stories, her office drama, my muddy detour around a washout trail, Helen's campfire wisdom, even the too thick diner pancakes that tasted like comfort. She listened, nodding, never once asking, "Are you sure you did the right thing?" That was Sarah's gift. She made you believe you could. Before we left, I tied her bandana, "Climb your own mountain," to my backpack for luck. "Every adventure needs a signature look," she declared, snapping a selfie of us, sunlight glinting off the glass, our laughter captured midair. That afternoon, the family video call waited in my calendar. My stomach fluttered, equal parts nerves and anticipation. I logged in, and for a moment the screen flickered with all their faces: Linda and Charles at the kitchen table, Emily in her living room, Mason and Sophie perched between, waving colored markers in the air. It was awkward at first, the way families often are when trying to bridge the space between hurt and hope. Charles broke the silence with a booming, "Well, look who survived the wilderness." His face was crinkled with a smile, and I noticed for the first time that he'd let his hair go gray at the temples. Mason held up a drawing, me in stick figure glory, climbing a triangle mountain with a giant sun overhead. "And Anna, did you really see a bear?" he asked, eyes wide. "Not this time," I grinned, "but I did eat s'mores for breakfast." Sophie piped in, "Did you get lost?" I shrugged, "Only for a minute, but that's how you find the best views." Emily was quieter than usual. When the kids darted off to get another masterpiece, she lingered on the screen. "Thanks, Anna," she said, voice a bit softer. "You made me think. I'll try to remember you're not just an Anna, you're you." Her words landed gentle as a hand on my shoulder. Maybe this was how sisters learn to let go, just a little. Linda, eyes watery, asked, "Would you help plan next year's trip?" For all of us this time. There was no guilt in her question, only a kind of hopefulness I hadn't seen in a long while. "Yeah," I said, steady and sure. "But only if there's at least one day of hiking." Charles chimed in, "Only if I don't have to eat another kale salad. Or wrestle a mountain goat." Did you know, Anna, that mountain goats are like Dad's, stubborn, sure-footed, and happiest when the family is all together? Groans and giggles broke the last of the tension. It felt like something settling, something good. After we said goodbye, a flurry of emoji-filled texts revived in the family group chat, vacation memes, photos of Sophie's marker-streaked face, Linda's sunset view out the kitchen window. For the first time in months, I didn't brace myself for what might come next. That evening, I opened my well-worn map and pinned a new spot, somewhere I'd only heard about, not for the family, not for anyone else, just for me. The adventure wasn't over. Maybe it was only just beginning. I sat on my balcony, the Denver sky fading from gold to violet, a soft breeze teasing the edge of Sarah's bandana. The city was alive below, but my world had grown wider, not smaller, for having stood my ground. In the quiet, I found a deep, steady gratitude for the family I had, the boundaries I'd drawn, and the open road ahead. Maybe home isn't just where you're welcomed. Sometimes, it's where you finally belong to yourself. Looking back on my journey, I realized that drawing boundaries wasn't about leaving my family behind. It was about finding my own place within it. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is to listen, to give space, and to let each other grow. In this life, we all need a little room to breathe, but when we meet each other with understanding, home becomes a place we carry in our hearts. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts or experiences. Thank you for sharing these moments with me. May we all find strength and kindness and warmth in every chapter ahead.